Here's the 1992 Ford pickup. The pickup got all new tires on it recently, and I noticed that one of the heater hoses was starting to deteriorate, so I decided to replace all the hoses and change the coolant on the pickup. However, when I did that, I came up with a problem. I wasn't getting any coolant flow through the upper radiator hose. It wasn't getting warm. I wasn't feeling coolant flow in the heater either. So I think I'm going to need to do some troubleshooting here. I've got the water pump, or got the water outlet removed, and got the thermostat removed here. First, going to try a new thermostat, because that's the most obvious source of the problem when you don't have coolant flow up into the radiator. If that doesn't do it, there may be something wrong with the water pump, although I don't see why the water pump should fail just instantly, because it did seem to be working with the old coolant in there. So I'm going to scrape off the old gasket. We've got the gasket sealer, the gasket, and the new thermostat. So that'll be the first thing I'll try. If that doesn't do it, we'll have to suspect the water pump of having a problem. We've now got the gasket sealer on the gasket and the new thermostat on. Again, we're using the fail-safe brand thermostat here. So go ahead and now put it back on. I think I got about as much of the old stuff off there as I could. So I'm ready to reassemble it. Now I'm back at the Ford pickup. It turns out that I didn't get enough of the old gasket junk off of there when I tried this the last time, and it ended up leaking. So now I made sure to do a more thorough job. I used a little bit of gum out and a Scotch-Brite pad, and well, first of all, I used a razor blade scraper, and it seems like it's pretty clean now. There's just a little oxidation still left on there. And I cleaned up the thermostat housing too, and got some new gaskets. So the type I got is actually the stick-on type, so I'm going to put the gasket on. I'm going to use just a little bit of Permatex thermostat gasket sealer on there, and then that ought to do it. I think on the Lincoln I just got lucky by not having to remove too much old gasket material. Most of it ended up coming off, I think, pretty easily, but on this one there was still some residue, and I think that was leading to a leak. The thermostat did work. It did open. Upper radiator hose got hot, but then I started getting a leak down at the bottom there, and I think it's due to this. There's a little bit of a flaw there, maybe due to corrosion, combined with some old gasket material on there. But I guess that's experience. Experience is the best teacher. You learn from doing it the wrong way the first time, and then you find out very clearly what went wrong with it. Plus, I did some more research on the World Wide Web. So I'm going to put the gasket on there, the stick-on gasket, and reassemble it. Now I've got the new gasket in place. The front part that went to the housing was a stick-on type, and I used Permatex number 2 on the other side. Permatex number 2 seemed to do a good job on this, so I thought I'd try it in preference to RTV type sealant, because it doesn't need to set up, it stays flexible, and seem to get good results with it here. So I'm going to let it dry for just a couple of minutes, or let it harden just a little bit. I don't think it ever gets really hard, but it says to let it set up for a few minutes and then reassemble. And then I think I'll may let it set for a couple hours before refilling and starting it up, just to make sure that I get the best bond from it. Now I've got everything reassembled, so I'll just wait a little while before I fill it up. You can tell that I've got a neater seal around the gasket this time, so hopefully that'll work okay. Well, I think I may have success now. Don't see any leakage around the gasket. The upper radiator hose is getting hot. Let's do a check of the temperature here. Looks like it's running a little hot. Now there it goes down. Now that I got the water pump and the fan going, it's starting to go down. But I've just got plain water in there, so I'm gonna let this circulate just a little bit more, and then I'm gonna refill it with antifreeze. Got a good amount of heat. I'm starting to get heat from the heater now. So that's reading a little bit hotter than it usually does, but I think it may be just because there's water in there and not antifreeze. I wanted to circulate water through the system to help clean out any scale. And then I'm going to refill with an antifreeze water mixture. So go ahead and shut it off here. Not detecting any leakage around there, so I think that's good now. We know the thermostat's opening because this hose is hot, and the heater hoses are hot too. But we'll let it cool for about 3 hours or more, and then I'll drain off the water and refill it with antifreeze. So it ought to be good to go. And I'll just keep an eye on the temperature. I'll take it out for a drive, and if it acts weird, it may be a problem in the radiator, but we'll just have to see how the temperature is actually driving it. But I think I fixed the thermostat problem on it now. Well, I think I now have the pickup truck working like it should. What I found was that I was getting no flow through the heater core. The output hose from the engine block or from the intake manifold was getting hot, but the return hose to the water pump was not. So what I did was just to bypass the heater core. I left that hose on it just to keep dust out of it. And I just ran a bypass hose from the heater output back to the heater input. Eventually I will replace this core, but it's certainly not on my priority list now that it's going to get up to 90 and 100 degree temperatures out. And I'm feeling warm air coming from the radiator, and the upper radiator hose is getting warm too. And I took the truck for a drive, and the temperature stayed just right about there. I was a little concerned because it didn't go much past that, and I was wondering if the temperature gauge was working. But then I did turn then after stopping the engine, I turned the key on, and the temperature gauge registered slightly higher than that. So I think it is working. But that's a whole big difference from what it was doing before, where it was getting up to the L, where it really seemed to be on the verge of overheating. But also, I noticed on this truck, when I'd be driving and have the air conditioner on and it was hot out, it would end up going to the end of the normal range when stopping at a stoplight or something. So I think I was having a coolant flow problem with this before. So I think this is probably going to do it. After initially refilling this with antifreeze, I let it sit for several hours and noticed it was kind of low on fluid, so then I refilled it with some water to get the proper antifreeze to water ratio. So I'll double check it again later on this evening just to make sure I'm not leaking antifreeze anywhere. But this heater hose feels warm, feels like there is coolant in it. This feels warm as well.